There we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour, episode 174. I'm here today with Jan.
Hello.
I'm gonna try and pronounce your last name. I'm probably gonna butcher it, so please forgive me. It's Let me look here on my thing. Here it is, Miklaszewicz.
Not bad, yeah. Jan Miklaszewicz. It's,
Miklaszewicz. I
yeah,
almost
my
I almost said Vich because like I don't know how familiar you are with comics, but there's a guy called Bill Sienkiewicz. He's like
no, I
Polish.
don't know. Yeah, it's my
I think it's
grandfather comes
Polish.
from.
I don't know.
Yeah, my grandfather was Belarusian. Um,
Huh.
so that's where I get that name from. He came over to Britain after leaving the Gulag at the end of the Second World War.
Oh, jeez.
Um, so yeah, that's where I get the name from. But
You know, I,
I'm thoroughly British.
you know, I
Myself.
joked with my dad once. We went to get a haircut, and then my hair was cut super short, like even shorter than I generally like it. And I was like,
Mhm.
"Good God, it looked like I just got out of a gulag." My dad had no idea what that meant, so I had to go like, "It's like a Russian prison, like a really
Yeah,
bad
that
Russian prison."
really, really bad. Yeah, I read a really like good book. I can't remember the name of it now, but it describes what when people you'd get gangsters in the gulag and some really horrible people,
Mm,
and if they wanted to escape the gulag, because they would put these prisons out in the middle of nowhere. They're in Siberia. You're screwed. You can't even even if you can escape the confines of the prison, there's thousands of miles or hundreds of miles of frozen wasteland. You're not got any luck getting away. But what they would do is they would take a young naive person under their wing,
oh
and
no!
that person was nicknamed the cow, and they'd run with the cow, and then if they needed to, they would kill the cow and eat the cow to help them get back to
Wow!
civilization. Yeah, so that's a horror story in the making, isn't it?
Oh man, that sounds like
Um,
something you could write about. You
I
also
probably wouldn't.
you write horror stories from or have written stories. I think they're horror stories because you're called a Hardmouth Horror on Twitter.
Yep,
Um,
yep, I do. I am a horror writer.
and
It's
people
it's
like
true.
Steve Stark and John Davis say it's pretty gnarly, and when they say it's pretty gnarly, I mean, I got to take note because
Yeah, and that's a real compliment too, because both those guys are great writers. So yeah,
yeah, I actually
um,
just got Muscle recently in the mail. Um, I'm hoping to read that soon.
it's a great read, and unlike there's a certain indiness to a lot of books, where people have great ideas maybe, and sort of they're good at telling stories, but they don't have the mechanics
Hmm.
of writing down. That's something you definitely can't say of John and Steve. They both know how to write as well. You're not stumbling over their sentences, trying to make sense of the story. So yeah, it's highly recommended. It's very good.
Yeah, I read a Hot Dose of Hell, Hot Dose from Hell, from
Hot Dose of Hell. Yeah,
yeah, from Steve, back in October. I quite enjoyed it.
it's fun, and Steve sets his story in a fictional English seaside town, Skarmouth.
Mm,
This is something that made me laugh when Steve and I kind of ended up hooking up, is because I also use a fictional town for my stories,
mm.
a fictional English seaside town called Hartmouth. So that's kind of a fun
it's a
connection we
it's
got
a
there.
cinematic universe.
It is indeed, yeah, very gnarly cinematic universe, but it's there.
Yeah, no, it was funny. I was joking with Steve because I had him on the show not too long ago. I was like, "Well, you're getting two Danny Boyle movies in one. You're getting it starts out as kind of a train spotting riff, and then it becomes 28 days later after that."
Yeah, yeah. After the drugs kick in, that's hell of a book. It's relentless as well. It's one thing I love about Steve's writing is, and it's probably not my greatest strength personally, is he's able to keep the violence just escalating and going on and on and on and ramping it up. And that's quite difficult to do as a writer, and as a reader, it's quite often you get tired by it. When you're reading, you think, oh, all right, come on, I get the point. But it's not like that with Steve's. He's always got another gear that he can move into. So yeah, it makes for a really good read.
Yeah, he's it was funny. He was telling me about like the real freaky thing. He was telling me like some of the drugs was actually based on a real thing called like crocodile. I'm like, that sounds really scary. It sounds really messed up.
Yeah, those designer drugs are. They had another one in England, I think, called Spice. It wasn't quite that bad, but I don't know if you know about it, but you get people who are pharmacists and they tweak a drug that's already there and they change the chemical composition slightly, so then it's not illegal because it's not a prescribed drug. It's a new thing, so that's the way they skirt around the law.
Mm-hmm.
But these things that they've like tweaked are mental, so you get people doing the craziest shit when they're using these drugs. So yeah, it's not that far from the truth, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, there was one instance in the United States. It was in Florida. This one guy was taking this bath salts, which is like like meth on. Meth's bad. This is even worse than meth. But like the guy like went crazy and started eating this poor homeless dude's face.
Yeah. Have you read any Brian Bowyer books?
No, I don't think I have.
Oh, you need to check that guy out on X or X or Twitter. He's a horror writer too, and one of the last ones I read of his had people doing really mad stuff on bath salts.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah,
Oh man.
I was introduced to that idea years ago. There was one of the you remember the CSI franchises they had.
I know of it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean they did it to death, didn't they? But back when it was kind of still fresh, they had one.
It's basically Law and Order, just more, not as well made as Law and. I don't like Law and Order much either, but at least Law and Order that looks the part. CSI is just like dollar store Law and Order.
Exactly, it's not that great. But one of those episodes, the early episodes, they had someone who had taken something like bath salts and ended up eating some part of somebody's body, and then that led to the whole crime scene investigation. But so I'd always had that idea that it was possible, but then reading it in other people's fiction, it's like really cool.
So, like, what is it that you write? Because, horror is kind of becoming, I mean, it's not quite as established as, like, science fiction and fantasy in the indie sphere, if you wish to call it that. But, yeah.
What do I write? Well, I mean, I'm not, like, a major horror fan. That's the weird thing. When I was younger, I went through a stage of reading horror. But people go through that like King stage. Mm-hmm. I didn't. I went through James Herbert. This was in my early to mid-teens. Get James Herbert, British horror writer. Not as stylish as King, actually. King's got better prose, I think. Even though he goes into the long grass, but James Herbert always had the ability to keep moving. He didn't go, didn't end up wandering off, which King does sometimes. You think, where's this going? Or he doesn't know how to bring it to an end. Mm-hmm. James Herbert had these just really good sort of ripping horror yarns, and I really enjoyed those. And then, I don't know, I used to write a lot of poetry, gave me a good basis in actual sentence construction. And I moved into short stories about 4 or 5 years ago. Quite like writing short stories. And they just kind of got darker. And then about just over a year ago, I was just playing around with a little bit of horror. And I wrote what became the prologue for my first horror novella. I just had this scene as some guy in the middle of the night walking down into the basement of this place where he's living, and even though he doesn't want to go down there, he ends up walking down there. This is something we see in horror movies, huh?
Mm-hmm.
A lot. And you, as the viewer, you're like, don't go down there. Why would you go into that basement? What is wrong with you? You know, and so I just wanted to explore that, and then it turned into this kind of a horror story. You know, these teenagers living in a house, a shared house, and something going really wrong, and I ended up writing a horror story. It came out of me in like 2 weeks, the first draft, and then I worked on it. And when I was writing it, I set it and I thought, look, if I choose a real place like my hometown or something, there's bound to be someone who's saying, oh, that shop doesn't exist on that street, or that's not the name of that. You get into all this problems if you're using a real location, of people being really fussy with it. So I thought, I'll just make up some generic seaside town, which I did. I made it this place called Hartmouth, based on a lot of the places I've lived and in that area of southwest England. And then when I came to write the next book, I thought, oh, what the hell? Why don't I set it in the same place? And then this idea of doing a series of novellas all set in the same place happened. And here I am, just finished the third book with probably another 5 that I'm going to write before I move on.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of positive feedback from like Steve and John and like Janelle, Sheiky.
Yeah, Shiki, I think that's how
Yeah,
to say it.
I have another
Yeah.
friend named Sheik, so it's kind of I get them confused sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so yeah, you've kind of been making a name for yourself in the horror sphere of indie publishing.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's a trip, and yeah, I've got a lot more that I want to write. So I don't feel like I'm running out of material anytime soon.
So I guess the generic question I can ask is like, what got you into writing? What intrigued you to the craft?
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up in a reading family.
Mm.
Ever since I can remember, there were books. My grandparents, you'd go and visit them. My grandmother would have a book in her hand. My grandfather had books on his table. My mum read to me. There were always books in the house. It was just a completely normal thing. In fact, it would have been weird. So I grew up a reader, and always enjoyed reading. And I guess, I got into my early 20s, and I wanted to be a writer, much more than, I didn't really have a clue how to write. This idea that if you're well read or that you're able to do the writing, I don't think that really tracks. Okay, and I was lousy. And I ended up not giving up, but I moved into like poetry because I was just writing these things that were so flowery and so ornate, and I just couldn't get any kind of grip on a writing voice. So yeah, I got into writing for all the wrong purposes, the mystique of it and stuff like that. And eventually, through writing poetry, I ended up with a real love for language. It was my major at university too, English language, and just kept on with that. And I think the poetry that I was writing became simpler and simpler, and I got more into structure, especially with my degree, because I didn't go to university straight from school. I worked in a lot of places first. I worked offshore in like undersea cable laying, workshops, machine shops, all that kind of thing. Traveled a lot. So when I got to university, I had a bit more of a work ethic. 3 years, and I took it really seriously, and got a real love for the mechanics of language. And then it kind of developed from there. And sometime within the last 5 years, I started writing prose again, and realized I could actually do it. I'm still developing it. I'm not there, but once you got once you feel you're actually able to write a story on the technical side, then that gives you confidence to just keep going.
Yeah, it's funny. My friend Sebastian Weiss, he wrote a book called Driver that came out a few years ago. I just read it recently, and it's about a mechanic who's well, he is a mechanic, but he also does like a bunch of like super shady stuff. It's basically about his life and whatnot, and you know he'll quote like books and stuff, and I was like, man, this guy's remarkably well read for a mechanic, and he's just like, you would be surprised how many like working class people are like pretty well read people, and I'd be like, I guess I mean I'm a middle class guy if you couldn't tell, so I mean I don't know, maybe my innate classism's coming through, but I was kind of like, it's kind of interesting, and he's like, you'd be surprised, kid.
Yeah, I mean, like I did a lot of reading when I was working on ships because it was just boring, when you're not on shift, especially if it's a dry ship. If there's no alcohol, there's no bar, then you do anything to kill time. One ship I was working on this Danish ship, and they had a bar, but one of our British guys defaced a picture of their royal family
Oh
drunk.
no!
Came back and drew moustaches on the women, and so they closed the bar, and then you're left, with just like reading to do. So yeah, so I used to read a lot. I read one book. This was on a different ship. We were laying a cable between the Philippines and Hong Kong, and so we're on a cable laying vessel, and the ship had a library, and I picked up one of James Clavell's books. You know the guy who wrote Shogun?
Yeah.
Yeah, he writes like huge books, and I picked up Noble House, and it's a brilliant book. But someone had ripped out like the last dozen pages.
Oh no!
I didn't realize. So I get to the end of this book, and we're not getting to, we were going to go to Singapore at one point. We didn't get to Singapore for another 2 weeks. So I was 2 weeks wondering what was happening at the end of this story. So yeah, that was. But going back to it, read a lot on ships, and a lot of people did.
Yeah, it's kind of like I remember reading somewhere, like sometimes prisoners play like Dungeons and Dragons to pass the time. So I mean, it's not impossible.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I also read a book about a guy who started reading when he was in prison and really took it up. So there you go.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and it's just, you get to put in a lot more of your own work. It's watching a movie is great. I don't bash that, but it's quite passive. Whereas if you've got a book, then your own sort of wetware up there is doing a lot more work. And I guess it's why when it comes to reading, and it sort of finds its way into my own writing, I don't like too much descriptive prose. I don't like too much detail about what a character looks like, or describing a room in detail, because I find that kind of corrals my own imagination. I like to have more freedom when I'm reading, to picture it myself.
So you're more into like the Hemingway type of like simplicity. Is what...
More like that. Yeah, I'm kind of not the world's most patient person anyway. If someone's telling me a story, or if my wife's telling me what she dreamt last night, I'm very often like, come on, cut to the chase. All this extraneous stuff is like, I'm bored. Can you just tell me what happened? So that finds its way into my own storytelling. I have lots of dialogue. I want to keep things moving. Most people, unless you're describing like a really unusual place, people know what a living room looks like. People know the mechanics of opening and closing a fridge. People know that stuff. So why are you telling people what they already know? Pick out 2 or 3 things in a room that makes that room remarkable. Yes, but I don't need to know all this detail about the way that the shades are hanging, and and it's just. So yeah, so I'm impatient. So my stories kind of cut a lot of that out. And, you know, I've had people say, you know, you could make a novel of this. And I'm like, yeah, but then that'd be boring, wouldn't it? Because I'd have to do lots of extra detail. I just want to tell the story as quickly and efficiently as I can.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you know, I think there can be a real, I think there can be a real sharp. I think that it can be really well done when you go for a more simple style.
It can do, you know, and there are certain genres it works better in. I mean, there's no accident that fantasy books are usually, you know, really fat. Is because there's so much world building. And I guess I'm inherently lazy in some ways, because when I tell a story, I don't want to do any more than I need to.
Yeah, like crime novels are very well known for. Not all of them are lean. Well, they can be, but I've read some. Stop that! Sorry, my phone went off.
That's right.
I mean, there are like kind of thicker crime novels, but you know they're mostly like reasonably sized, and they generally go for that more, I'd say, minimalist kind of style.
Yeah, good. Especially those sort of those noir, those sort of cheap noir books.
Yeah.
Really good. It's one thing I loved about, you know, some of those like sort of seminal works. Like, do you ever read any William Burroughs?
I have, or actually, no, I have. I've read Junkie from him a long time
Yes.
ago.
Yeah, I mean
I've been
that's the
kind of
sort of
afraid to touch some of his like weirder work, like Naked Lunch, because I'm like, I
yeah,
don't know if I'm gonna get this.
yeah, and honestly, things like Naked Lunch, it's more of a reference book than a, you know, a straight narrative. It's the sort of thing you can dip into now and then, but
Isn't it about him
you
on
know,
drugs? Like,
oh, there's all sorts. You know, I mean, Burroughs was like a genius. Really, he's a really like super intelligent guy.
mm-hmm.
You know, a pretty nasty bloke in some ways as well. I mean, he ended up shooting his wife in like a William Tell type shoot the apple off the top of your head accident. I say accident in quotations, but he's really, and you know, he's quite deviant in some ways. You know, he's into younger men
Uh huh.
and maybe even younger than men. Drug taking, but he's really highly intelligent, and his, you know, his books are just like really interesting. But some of it will give you the ick. So it's, for me, better off sticking with like his straight narratives, like Junkie, Queer. He did some really cool short stories as well, because that guy can really write. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
remember liking Junk. I was reading a lot of like transgressive type lit. Like, I don't know if you've read like Train Spotting. I mean, I love the movie, but you know,
I haven't read the book, but you know, I mean, it's something that I would probably
have you seen the
enjoy.
movie at least?
Yeah, oh yeah, I know the movie.
Okay.
He's one of those writers who really like writes the characters' dialogue as they speak. If
Uh
I'm
huh.
not mistaken, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that tough to read? Because some of that sort of
I say
Glaswegian patois.
read it out loud, or just think of how they talked in the movie, and you'll understand it a little better. It's kind of like when doing a Clockwork Orange, you know, like you're like, what the fuck is this? And then you watch the movie and then read the book. You're like, oh, this okay.
That's the way they talk. Yeah, um, that's really something that's interesting to me anyway. Dialogue, you know, that's people usually compliment the dialogue in my books. It's
Mm-hmm.
something, and I think that's because it's not really necessarily any great skill or talent I have, but because I'm an expat, okay, and I don't spend a lot of time in the UK. I think I miss my people, and I think a lot of my writing is conversations that I miss, is reminiscences, and so when I'm writing that dialogue, I'm very tuned to how Brits speak, and that's something that I really put into my work. Um, but the reason I'm mentioning this is I don't put a lot of work into showing how the accents are, because I
Mm.
find that can be really difficult to read. Even things like, you know, the Secret Guard. I mean, that's a really well known story, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But she represents the speech of the Northern England, and that's really hard to read, you know. And I've taught that book,
Mm.
so I try not to do that. I think it can be overdone. Maybe people like Irving Welsh can get away with it, but accent work.
I thought it was pretty well done, even though it was sometimes like, good God, what are you talking about? But
Yeah, yeah. It
again, I
can.
kind of, it worked out for me because I had seen the movie first, and it's really weird because it's kind of like a short story collection, but also a
Mhm.
novel at the same time. It's really weird. I can't really put it into words.
So what? So for the movie, they've plucked
They
out certain
condensed a lot of it.
parts. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It's kind of like the L.A. Confidential movie. They took out maybe like a good portion of the book, but like managed to like tighten it down to what it's mostly about, and they got away with it. So I don't know, but it worked out. That's what I'm trying to say.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, I do.
It's funny what you said about dialogue. I just recently read a book I read it a few months ago, but it was called The Friends of Eddie Coyle,
Hmm.
and much of the entirety of that book, like 85% of it, is just people sitting around talking.
Yeah,
It feels like a
yeah,
stage play, honestly. It's not really like a novel. He'll just go like, he walked down the stairs and looked over, and there were four guys in masks and said, "Get your ass down here." And that's about it in terms of description.
that's Cormac McCarthy did one like that, didn't he? It's actually a play, and they made it into a movie. I
Mm-hmm.
can't
Yeah, yeah,
remember.
yeah.
It's the name of a train, isn't it? The Sunset Limited or something like that.
Yeah,
And that's
that's a good one. That's a really good one.
yeah. I really enjoyed it. It was what was it? Samuel L. Jackson and
I think it was Tommy
Tommy
Lee
Lee Jones.
Jones.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones, and that's really good. And I think as well. Do you watch any Jarmusch movies?
What?
Jim Jarmusch. He did like Coffee and
Oh, I've
Cigarettes.
only seen Dead Man from him.
Oh, that's the one with Johnny Depp. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Jim Jarmusch does a lot of dialogue too, and I think
This is the weirdest Western I've ever seen. That isn't like El Topo. I don't know if you've ever seen El Topo.
I haven't seen El Topo, but you're right in it being kind of a weird western. It's pretty far out there, but it's good. I enjoyed it,
It's
and
also interesting how he does like native mythology. I thought that was really neat. And it's actually apparently pretty like authentic to how it actually works, like shamanistic stuff.
yeah, who's the guy he got to play you have the guy traveling with Johnny Depp.
I don't know the guy's name, but he's called like Nobody in the movie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a really good movie. But Jarmusch does like Coffee and Cigarettes, like a series of vignettes, and it's just people sitting around smoking and drinking coffee and talking. They've got one with like some of the Wu-Tang Clan with Bill Murray, in a cafe. You got another one where Kate Blanchett plays herself and a cousin of hers in a
Oh, his
scene.
name's
You got one
Gary
with
Farmer, the actor.
Gary Farmer, all right. You got like a scene with Tom Waits and Iggy Pop, which is pretty cool. And I always kind of gravitated towards that, people talking, and that's probably
So
a reason why.
you like Tarantino movies?
I'm not actually a major aficionado. I've seen a couple. I'm not
Okay.
completely
There's a lot
ignorant
of
of his stuff.
talking in his movies, so
Yes, yeah, he goes pretty
sometimes
heavy
too
with the
much,
dialogue.
but
Yeah, but yeah, I enjoy that aspect of it. I think writing dialogue can be good as long as it's not just for its own sake. As long as it's telling a story in itself, for me, then yeah, it works. Move the plot forward, keep things happening.
yeah. It's funny. I'm also a fan of dialogue. I like hearing the voices of the characters. But I read something like The Friends of Eddie Coyle recently, and I'm just like, how much do I actually like dialogue? Yeah, I mean it's great dialogue, but it was kind of like, I don't know, it didn't,
It can go on,
because
and
most of that book is just like a bunch of like kind of down and out criminals just kind of chatting about business, or cops going
yeah,
like, how the fuck are we gonna catch these guys, basically. Again, I don't know if you've read this book at all, but you may like it if you
no,
like
but
dialogue.
yeah, I think I'll write The Friends of Eddie Coyle.
Mm-hmm. It's by a guy called George V. Higgins.
George V. Higgins. All right. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like my thing. It's worth checking out.
Yeah, it's the same guy. If you've never ever seen the movie Killing Them Softly, it's the same. He wrote the book for that.
Oh, Brad Pitt and yeah, Brad Pitt in that one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although he's not the one I really enjoyed it. The one I liked in it was one of the was I'm going to struggle to remember his name. Did you see the remake of that Danish movie Speak No Evil?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the remake. What's the name of the guy in that? The American father.
Oh, Scoot McNairy. Yeah.
Yeah, Scoot McNairy. He was in Killing Them Softly, wasn't he? And that's the first I'd seen Scoot McNairy, and he's really good. I really like him.
You know, it's
Really
funny.
understated.
Steve's actually watching the original version of Speak No Evil, and I'm like, dude, that movie's so fucked up.
Yeah, I actually put a comment on. He posted about it, didn't he? I put a comment, and for me, I didn't really like the movie. I got what it was trying to do, but it's one of those where the politics comes before the storytelling.
Oh yeah. Uh huh.
Because I get it that the family, the victim family, is overly polite, too much worried about social graces,
Uh huh.
and they're too passive, and I get that, but they put it to the point of it being over the top, that they were like comically passive, and the way it unraveled at the end, there being no fight in them at all. I just thought it was too much. It went too far, and tried to make a political point, and it's a real hot button sort of topic, especially in Europe.
Yeah, I got kind of turned off by the child getting tortured. I'm like, I don't like watching that.
Yeah,
I enjoy me a depraved book or film, but I have limits. It might not be like everyone else's, but I have them.
yeah. I think you got. The same for me, and my first horror novella has got some pretty graphic content, but I always think, does this belong here? Am I just doing? Is this gratuitous? Is this necessary? And yeah, I think there are certain things that, although you don't, as a writer, you don't have to shy away from them. There's a difference between not shying away from something and indulging yourself.
Hmm.
And I think you've got to be really careful there. So yeah, there are certain things I don't like to see on screen either.
Yeah, no, I was like, I mean, I saw the remake first, and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty solid little flick. And then my friend's like, that movie's lame. You should watch the original one. And I did. And I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
this is you could do a whole thing about this, getting people arguing about which is the better movie.
and I was
And
just
for
like,
me,
this is sick, man.
yeah, I
I feel
mean,
disgusting after watching that.
yeah, right. I mean, both of those movies, are really flawed. The remake. I mean, McAvoy's brilliant, isn't he? He's just so unhinged, and he's
Oh
really
yeah.
fun. He's really fun to watch. But for me, towards the end of that movie, it turns into Home Alone. With all this,
I thought the awkward like
defending the
family
house.
drama wasn't really well handled. I was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that?
Yeah, he got the. Tell you one thing he got, because I come from down in southwest England, so McAvoy really nailed that southwest accent. It was kind of fun, and I think we've all met somebody like that. Obviously toned down a bit. Someone
Not a
who,
psychotic murderer.
not a psychotic murderer, but someone who doesn't, know when to shut up, doesn't, or makes too much of a
Has
drama of
has poor social
disciplining their own
skills.
children. Yeah, disciplines their child way too publicly, just to make a point about what a tough parent they are, and stuff like that. And, but I think that's, in a way, that's what's fun about that movie, is McAvoy goes way over the top, and it's fun. It's
Yeah,
fun to
no,
watch him doing that.
that was fun. I agree. That was fun to watch. He's very good at that. Like, I don't know if you ever seen Split, but he's really great
No,
in that.
but several people have recommended that to me. When I've
He's
talked
a
about
guy
this
with dissociative identity disorder. I should say, for clarity's sake, this is not at all a realistic take on that disorder, but he really has fun with all the different personalities. Is what I'm trying to say.
All right. Yeah, and the first time I saw McAvoy was in the Last King of Scotland. Have you seen that? The one
Oh
that
yeah,
seems
with
like,
Forrest Whitaker. Yeah, I saw that a long time ago.
yeah, Forrest Whitaker playing Idi Amin.
And
So yeah, he's
and
a
Whitaker just is absolutely insane as Idi Amin.
Yeah, honestly, that movie
Which
is,
even then that was true. A lot, I think I read somewhere, a lot of that was true. Like a lot, just
yeah,
he would often
yeah,
act like unhinged to like throw people off.
yeah. That actually, that movie contains one of the scariest scenes that I've ever seen. From my own visual imagination is I don't want to give this away for people watching, but you remember that James McAvoy's character is having an affair with one of Idi Amin's mistresses, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then he finds her dead, and certain things have been rearranged with her body parts.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, that was just like, oh my god, what a horrible visual that is. So yeah, pretty inspiring as someone who writes a bit of horror, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of this other movie I saw called The Devil's Double, which is this weird film about the Hussein family. I think they were trying to do what Last King of Scotland was doing, but it wasn't as good. But the
Okay.
story is really fascinating. It's about this guy who was allegedly the body double of Uday Hussein, who was Saddam's son, and he was this absolute fucking lunatic. Um, and what is weird, like they're not like they both like knew each other from like primary school or whatever you guys call it over there. You don't
Mhm.
live in Islamic country, but
Primary school, yeah. Oh, no, I do live in an Islamic country actually. Indonesia is like the world's most populous Muslim country. It's about like
oh well,
80 plus
okay then.
percent.
I don't know what they call it over there, if they call it primary, because I know some of the like I know that they sometimes mimic like British culture because of colonialism and all that
Yeah,
fun
actually,
stuff.
here they have a lot of international schools. So they follow
Oh,
the American model more now. They do have separate like Islamic schools, like madrasas and stuff. But mostly, I mean, this one thing that's really pretty cool about Indonesia is they're pretty laid back on the religious side. I mean, they take it seriously, but
I'm just gonna get
their
absolutely.
interpretation.
I'm just gonna get
Go on.
ripped on by some Islamic people in the comment section
Yeah.
if they find this and go like dumb American. It's funny. I have a friend. His name's Suleiman. It's kind of a Islamic play on Solomon.
Yeah.
Um, we call him Slay for short. I haven't talked with him in a while, but he's from Kuwait. So, me and another friend of mine and him, we would, sometimes sit around and he would tell us about what Kuwait is like. And it's kind of, we were always kind of like, oh, yeah, we're dumb Americans. Tell us what Kuwait's like. And yeah, it's really modern over there. Like, they got like a Raising Cane's over there. It's like, oh, well, okay, you guys are really,
Yes,
really,
extremely wealthy Kuwait, huh?
yeah.
My dad's second wife. He's on a third now, but his
Good
second
God.
wife, her father was a pilot for Kuwait Airways, so they lived out there.
Oh.
They had an apartment out there, and that was their life. And then, do you remember that Kuwait was invaded
Yeah, that's the
by
only thing
Iraq?
I knew about it before I met Slay.
Yeah, her mother and sister were caught in that. They were over
Oh,
there,
no.
and yeah, and I remember like a couple of like really mad weeks trying
Anyway,
to contact them,
sorry.
and yeah, go on. Anyway,
I was just gonna say,
Suleiman.
I was just gonna say, going back to my point, I remember watching The Devil's Double. Really fascinating story. The real actual story is really interesting. It's this guy, he knew you, they were like acquainted, but they look a lot alike. It's really weird. Like if you see like a photo of the two of them, like he could pass as the dude's double if he really wanted to. I mean, I don't know if the story is necessarily true. I've seen people call it into question over the years, but I don't know.
I
But
mean,
an interesting story nonetheless.
I mean,
Whatever.
Saddam was famous for having doubles, wasn't he? Saddam
Yeah.
Hussein, the main guys. So that I don't know if it was an urban legend or whether it really was the case, but he was known to have numerous doubles out of fear of assassination and such.
Yeah, then I watched The Last King of Scotland. I'm like, oh, this is a better version of that movie. Okay, but it doesn't have
Yeah,
that whole body double thing going. It's
no,
just James
yeah,
McAvoy being like, oh, this guy's not so bad. Then, oh, this guy's a psychotic murderer.
yeah.
I
I've
need to
got
get
him
the
too
hell
deep.
out of here.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
scary
fantastic
stuff.
movie.
Huh? So you get into trouble when you're far away from home. This is something I've discovered, as an expat life. Lived in a lot of countries, and you have to be very careful in another country. You have far fewer protections than you do in your own. Okay,
Yeah, you
especially if you
can't
don't
like.
have the
I bet you can't
language.
walk outside your house and go fuck the government. You'll probably get like I don't know what it's like in your country, but
Oh, I tell you what, I was living in Serbia for a while. We did a year in Serbia. I ended
oh
up moving
no.
down to, lived in this little village down on the border with Romania, and that was pretty wild. I'll be writing. That's inspired some of my horror writing. We had the guy next door to us like poisoned our cats.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, I know, and then you realise that that you're surrounded by people whom are in possession of firearms
Oh
that
god.
that went missing after the Balkan conflict. As far as countries in that part of the world go, then Serbia is like seriously tooled up with guns. So yes, it's pretty scary stuff. And be very careful when you're far away from home, especially if you're a tourist. Behave yourself. That's my advice if I'm giving any.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story. I was part of a class. I went to college for journalism, and one of the
Hmm.
teachers told this story about when he went to I think it was like Morocco or somewhere. It was Islam. It was mostly like an Islam country, so Islam. Again, I'm just gonna get ripped in the comment section by
That sounds right, though. Morocco, North
is.
Africa. Yeah, it's an
I,
Islamic Muslim country.
if any
Yeah.
Muslims watch this, they're just gonna rip me in the comments. But anyway, I'm just embracing it at this point. But yeah, he warned them. He's like, "Hey, you better wear some like what are those called? Burqas or the hijabs?" He's like, "You better
Yeah.
wear
You gotta.
those." And they're like, "Oh yeah, whatever, idiot." And then they went outside without them on, and they were getting stones thrown at them. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it pays to have a bit of respect. Here in Indonesia, they're pretty chill, but even then, it's not considered polite to like for women to have bare shoulders. There's no, public displays of affection are pretty much out. And it's painful when you're over here and you see tourists doing that. And they're like, oh, we'll do what we fucking want. And it's just a little bit like, come on, you're a guest, at least. And I've lived out this way so long now. I'm used to it. It's just fine for me. In fact, if I see people underdressed, I'm not offended by people being underdressed in that sense, but I'm
But you do kind
offended
of
by
wince a
the.
little bit.
Yeah, and you just think that's not. How about being a decent guest? These be a decent guest in this people's country. It's not your country. It's not really that difficult to follow a few social norms, I think. So yeah, behave.
Yeah, no, I've not been abroad. I would love to go abroad at some point in my life, but I don't know. I'd love to go to England at some point because it's just there's so much history over there. But I heard it gets super
Yeah,
rainy, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
yeah. Especially, I mean, I grew up in the southwest, which is like probably the wettest part of England. So yeah, we do get a lot of rain.
Yeah,
That's
no,
for
I
sure.
was I was joking with a friend of mine a while back, who's one of my best friends. He's from England, and I'm like, how do you guys write so much over there? Like, you guys are always writing like the craziest stuff over there in England. It's like, well, we're all inside all day writing. You got nothing better to do with your time. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one thing. I mean, England comes in for a lot of criticism, and rightly so. It's still got this kind of this attitude that we've got an empire. It's like long that ship's long sailed, but Britain still remains very literate. The literacy rate in schools is really good.
Oh,
And yeah. I was doing a little bit of reading about it. So yeah, I guess we turn out a good proportion of writers still, because we read. We're pretty literate. Um, so yeah, that's part of it. I mean, I don't even remember learning to read it. It came that soon. I mean, my daughter spent a couple of years in British schools, and was reading by the age of 6, like reading really well. That's something I always focus on with my kids. If they can read, the rest of the education isn't quite so important. Um, if they can do the math and the reading, I think.
Yeah, or just go see the UK in general. You know, it's just there's so much history there, and like landscapes, and so much crazy stuff has happened in England, to say the least.
Yeah, yeah, and I miss it. I miss it, and it's one of those places I'll go back there, and 3 weeks later I'll be like, oh, this is why I left, bloody shithole. But I miss it, and there's something about your own country, your own soil. You get back. I mean, I'll watch a TV show now, and a certain scene will come on. Maybe it's a British TV show, and it will really tug my heartstrings. Like, oh, I know what that kind of street feels like to walk down, or I know what that part of moorland would feel like under my feet. I know what it smells like. So yeah, you definitely have a yearning for your own place, and this is part of why I write these stories with people who I remember and people I love, and I kill a fair few of them in the stories, but it's still, it's still kind of their love letters to where I grew up and where I'm from, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a place I'd love to go to at some point. You know, just to see it and know where all this stuff came from.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you'll enjoy the food. I'm sure people they have this idea that like British food's terrible, but I don't think it's any more or less terrible than American food. Most of the great stuff in America is like, everyone talks about Taco Tuesday, so that's very American, isn't it? Um, and it's the same in England. You get great. There are some good national dishes, but you also get great imported food. So, great Chinese food, great Indian food, and stuff like that.
I was about to
It's a
say
very,
us Yankees are good at bastardizing things.
yeah, Tex-Mex cooking stuff. But I actually enjoyed eating in America. I've only been over like 3 or 4 times. I spent some time in San Diego, Boston, parts of Florida. But I like it well enough. It's kind of the only thing I would say is the portions you guys have are huge. You order a meal and it's like, my God, it's enough for 2 people here. That's always a real surprise.
Yeah, it's weird how that works. I mean, yeah, I think the obesity's fucking crazy over here. So there you go.
Yeah, well, it's getting like that in Britain too now. I mean, weirdly, it's to get foods that don't make you fat is more expensive than to all the healthy stuff, the stuff that's really good for you is a lot of the times out of your price range, isn't it?
Yeah, my uncle's always ranting about like processed foods and like, oh, they're putting chemicals in the food, and he's always going off about that. I'm just like, you know what? I, I
Yeah,
I'm just doing my thing over here, and if I die someday, I'm good to go.
yeah, yeah.
Hopefully
You're
not a
gonna.
long time. Hopefully a long time from now, but
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for just enjoying your life, isn't there? That always cracks me up watching those like cooking shows because you get some like celebrity chef and they're trying to teach you how to eat healthily, and they're like, just go down to your local fishmonger and pick up a bit of salmon, and you're like, dude, one piece of salmon, I could have like 50 sausages, 50 frozen sausages for that. Get a grip, understand how most people live.
yeah, I know. I'll eat bacon sometimes. I'm always like when I eat it, I love bacon, but sometimes when I eat it, I'm always afraid I'm gonna have like. It's like, good lord, I've probably taken some years off my life eating this.
Yeah, all the
I'd have a heart attack.
preservatives and salts and all sorts, but it's still good, though. You still got to enjoy what you're eating.
Yeah, no, oh my gosh, put a crap load of salt in my food. Anyway, yeah. So you've been around then. You've been to Serbia. What were you there for? What were you there in Serbia for?
Just wanted to try living there. So
Oh
so
man.
my wife is Indonesian, and the Indonesian passport and nationality doesn't grant you access to a lot of places um, to get residency. So when at the end of COVID, 2021, we'd been like locked down for 2 years in Indonesia, and we're like, let's just go somewhere for goodness sake. So we went to Istanbul first, and we got a year's residency in Istanbul. It was pretty cool, living in Besiktas, right in the center. And then, my wife had this idea that you can buy a property in Serbia for like small money. I'm talking small money, like $10,000 to buy a house out in the countryside. So we went and tried that. We lived in Belgrade, in the capital, for a few months while looking for a house. Bought this little house in a village. Went there, and then it was hell. But we tried it, and it's just part of what we do. My work as a teacher has taken us different places too. We lived in China for about a year and a half up in the north, and it's just kind of in our blood. Before that, before I got married, um, my work took me to a lot of places. So I think it's just in my blood to travel around. Done most of Europe, fair part of Asia.
I've always been kind of afraid to go to like Russia or anywhere else in that kind of like Balkan state because Russia's become somewhat of a meme in recent years just because of like how much stuff goes down over there, like how like tough the people are over there. Like it's like
There is something to it, it's not just
I'm
a
always
meme.
afraid like if I walk over there and like look at somebody the wrong way, they'll like walk up and like pop my head off,
I, I feel like, and I'll tread carefully here because, that it's easy to get into stereotypes, but living in Serbia, which, they're all in that kind of area, there is a certain distance, a certain coldness and toughness to the people that's not very easy to deal with. Um, and yeah, I didn't particularly enjoy living in that part of the world. Made some friends. I make friends wherever I go, but it wasn't an easy life. And there's a certain aloofness and coldness to the people. Um, so yeah, I think if you went to Russia, you wouldn't have to worry about dealing with any violence, but you might find the people a bit standoffish, a bit cold. You may not feel very welcome, I would say.
yeah, and it always looks like super like cold and like frigid over there when I see them in like movies. I'm just like, damn.
Yeah, I recently watched. I don't know if you've seen. Did you ever see that mini series that HBO did, the Chernobyl, about the
No, I've
Chernobyl?
wanted to see that though. No, I
Oh
haven't.
man, you got that. If I would recommend anything, and as a horror writer, that is, oh, it's nightmare fuel. But they really captured the vibe of it there, and having lived in Serbia, I could feel it. I would feel it watching that. And yeah, there is a certain vibe there. And yeah, that's why I won't be going back. It's not for me.
Yeah, no, I'm always I'm always yeah, it's I once joked with a friend. I'm like, yeah, Russia's just been raw dogged by history from all accounts. They're just dictatorships and invasions and uh
Yeah,
all over the
yeah.
place and people starving and it's just yeah, it's not it's I'm glad I live in America. That's what I'm getting at. Oh man.
Yeah, it's a very tough part of the world, and a lot of places around there.
It's like
You've got.
India, I don't know if you've been to. I mean, I'd love to. I mean, I wouldn't mind going to India if I ever get the chance to, but that also seems like a hard place to live at.
Yeah, I think so. It's never been like top of my list. A couple of places have never really been high on my list. I'm not all that interested in going to any of the African countries. It just doesn't appeal to me.
Mm.
I've probably seen too much on the TV
It's
about
like,
people
oh
at
come on,
war.
what could be so bad about going to Sierra Leone?
Yeah,
you know?
it's just, let me just casually hack your arm off and steal your car. But it just doesn't appeal to me. India doesn't really appeal to me. I'd quite like to go to Australia.
I would also
Um,
like to go. I've always wanted to go to the Outback, but I have a friend who's from New Zealand. God bless her soul. She's named Derry. She's like, you should come over here. We got Hobbiton over here, and I'm like, that's true. I'll have to go to New
yeah,
Zealand at some
I
point too.
think, I think the Australians that I know and met, and seeing media, they're 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 like a they're like a kind of a weird hybrid between Brits and Americans. They've got the confidence, the sporting ability, the optimism of America, but they've retained some of that sort of foul mouthed Britishness as well, and that kind of really appeals to me.
Yeah, I know. It's I have a buddy of mine. His name's Matt, and he's kind of like he's been kind of all over the place, and he was born in America, and I just couldn't make out his accent for a long time, and I'm just like, I asked him once, I'm like, so what is actually your accent? And he's like, okay, how about you guess? I'm like, British? He's like, no. He's like, Irish? He's like, definitely not. And I'm like, I give up. And he's like, it's Australian. I'm like, it's Australian.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed that, the it's kind of tough to say Americans because your country is so big, and
This is true. Yes.
it's huge, and I almost feel like you guys would be doing yourself a favor if you identified by your state rather than your huge like collection of states, because people
Yeah,
would have a much better idea what
there's
they're dealing with.
there's
Like,
dozens of
oh,
places in America, like, where go about an hour and a half away from where I live, and you get people who, sound like, not country like Hicks. If you want like Hicks, you go down to like East Texas, or like Kansas, but yeah, just the amount of accents around the United States is ridiculous. Is what I'm trying to get
yeah,
at.
exactly. And that, I mean, hugely different climates
Oh
from
my
the
god.
north to the north to the south, the east to the west as well. It's so big. So yeah, I feel uncomfortable saying Americans, but there's nothing else I can say really, is there? Unless I know where someone's Floridian or whatever. But yeah, going back to it, that accent, the British and Australian accents are often kind of confusing for some Americans. I've had people ask if I'm Australian. I'm like, no, not Australian at all. Um, but yeah, I would like to go there. And they
Yeah, it would
make
be
some pretty.
nice, Though I mean, I've seen movies like The Proposition. It doesn't sound like always a fun place to be. But I'd love to see the Outback at some point,
Yeah,
if ever I get the chance to in my life.
yeah, the traveling is well worth it if you can. It makes you realize how privileged you are in the comforts of your own life as well. I mean, I'll be on Twitter and there are people raging about the state of their library or something. And I think, library, you got a library, lucky you. Or I mean, here it's not like you can call an ambulance and get quick health care. Half the time you're lucky if your roof doesn't leak. Um, so yeah, it's good. It's good to get out of your comforts a little bit and see how other people live. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's funny, one of the reasons I probably just watched too many movies, but I saw like Slumdog Millionaire, and I was just like, I don't know, I'm not sure if India would be a fun place to visit, and I have some friends who
It's
are Indians. It's like it's not like that, not all like that.
it's not all
It's
like
a
that. It's
lie.
amazing. A lot of it's probably true though. I mean, it's amazing to me here in
I still love
Indonesia
that
too.
movie, by the way. It's a great film. It's
I haven't actually seen it. It's a Danny Boyle movie, isn't it?
it's another Danny Boyle movie, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, there is a certain truth to some of those scenes. It cracks me up in Indonesia because you'll be at work with someone and they're so like clean and tidy and well dressed and smell fresh, and yet you discover the place they live. It's like, how do you live there and manage to get into work looking so pristine? It's amazing. Like you'll meet people in these hot countries with really sort of real deprivation, and yet the way they present themselves, their physical appearance, their dress is way superior to anything we can manage living in a clean apartment. So that's pretty fun. I like that.
Yeah, no, it's weird how that works. I mean, I'm trying to think of.
Priorities, isn't it? It's what you prioritize. If you're focusing on that
Yeah, it's
rather
true.
than
I'm not
grabbing some
great at like
beers or.
I'm not great at like grooming myself, but I try to stay clean.
Yeah, yeah, it helped. And I suppose in a hot country you've got to, as you'll end up covered in rashes or smelling
Oh
terrible
man, yeah.
if you don't do it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird out here where I live. We have a saying. It's if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes, it'll change. So, there
Ah,
you go.
okay.
Because sometimes
Yeah,
it'll be
so
like super sunny and like hot, and then it'll be like, oh, it started raining. And you're like, oh, well, because it rained last night. I didn't know of this. But today it was just absolutely gorgeous outside. So
Yeah, Britain's a little bit like that, actually. Britain's a bit like that. So like
I
four
always
seasons
thought of
in one
Britain as like
day.
kind of gray and and rainy a lot of the time.
It is. You do get a fair bit of grey and rain, but you can. There are times when you set out in a t-shirt and shorts. It's nice, and then the next minute it's raining, and then it's cold. So like a four seasons in one day kind of thing. So yeah, you feel like you never got the right clothes on in
It's like
England.
again, I maybe just watched too many movies, but I see like a lot of like I've seen like English films. It's like, good God, everything just looks super grainy and like gray. Like, how are
Oh
you all just
man, if you
not
go
like
to,
super depressed all the time?
I think we revel in it. I think a lot of Brits, certainly for I mean, I'm Gen X, aren't I? So we're kind of damaged in our own special way. But there's kind of people in Britain that I know kind of take pride in being the underdog a little bit. We kind of expect things to go wrong, and are then pleasantly surprised when things do go wrong. We're like, yes, I knew this was going to be shit. I told you it was going to be shit, and it was. Yay! And yeah, there's that kind of attitude about it. So we revel, I think, to some extent anyway. We revel in the misery of it. It's not.
England's a strange place. I've from again what I've seen because like there's like a like people like to go like, oh, look at the British, they're always like proper and whatever, and then like, but like when you guys go like hard edge, like it gets like you guys can be pretty harsh. That was a bad way of
Yes,
explaining that.
no, it's right. I mean, I've been recently watching. I'm terrible when it comes to watching media. Like I'll watch something that people were enjoying 10 years ago. I just checked out. I only recently checked out the first season of True Detective. The one with
Oh yeah.
McConaughey.
Oh
Oh man, I really enjoyed that. And you look at it, and they're certain things, certain scenes take place in these sort of backwoods type people, these kind of hillbillies or really low income, low education, and you recognise your own country in it. There are parts of England where you'll go, and people are living in those conditions and that way of life. So yeah, we're just like a kind of much smaller United States, I think. There's everything. There's everything there in England. You just got to know where to look for it.
yeah, I remember watching that first season and just going how super muggy and hot everything looked. So there you go.
Yeah, really. But it's a great show. I,
Oh,
I
it is.
don't
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll watch any of the others. I think it. I got a
Season
feeling like it
3 is
peaked.
pretty good, but the rest of them you don't have to watch. It's an anthology series, so that's nice.
Yeah, yeah. Season 3. Who's in season 3?
Mahershala Ali, who um guy called this character's name's Roland. I think his name's Steven Dorff. I could be wrong on that.
Stephen Dorff. He was in the first Blade movie, right?
Yes, he was,
Deacon Frost. Okay,
and
yeah.
he's really good in that season. He's really good, but yeah. So none of them are as good as season 1, though. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got a lot of. I don't know about his politics or his how he actually is, but I got a lot of respect for Matthew McConaughey because he sort of fought against being typecast. He started off in all those sort of rom-com type movies, and he decided he didn't want to do it, and he went for quite a few years without getting any work, um, until he got the roles he wanted, and I can respect that. That he didn't just cash in and on the type of movie that other people wanted him to do.
Yeah, it's
That's good.
funny. I remember reading The Big Nowhere from James Elroy last year,
Hmm.
and then I was thinking of, and I was kind of looking through True Detective season 2, and I'm like, wait a second,
Oh, they
because
they borrowed heavily, did they? Um,
yeah, I was like, everyone flipped the fuck out about Thomas Ligotti and season 1 of True Detective. But like
uh,
none of the James Elroy fans are like, wait a second. It's not like he
Hang
like
on,
it's not like
yeah.
he stole dialogue or anything, but like there are certain characters and like archetypes in that season, It also takes place in LA, so there you go. So there's that as well.
Okay.
But you're like, this character is literally that other character that was in The Big Nowhere.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's I thought it was kind of funny, and I don't want to get in the whole Thomas Ligotti True Detective because that's a whole. I've gotten blocked over getting into arguments with people about that, so I won't touch on that.
Oh, it's amazing the block culture. I tell you what, it's crazy. I mean, I've blocked the only people I block is like if someone's gone absolutely batshit crazy, I'll block them, and I'll block anyone who's like trying to market to me or is like sex cam stuff. That's automatic block. But most people, if they like piss me off or just the worst I'll do is mute them. I don't see why we have to the first thing we run into that we disagree with that we've got to cut that person off so we never ever see them again.
Yeah, I know the mute button is really nice.
The mute buttons. I do a mute amnesty sometimes. Like I did it a while back. I took everyone on mute. Everyone I put on mute, I unmuted them again, and then for the next week I was like, oh, now I remember why I muted you. You still going on about that nonsense like 6 months later. But yeah, it's handy. Another thing I found really handy on there as well to stop from doom scrolling is you can turn off the automatic play on like videos as well. So if you turn that off, then it doesn't, because otherwise, you're like, oh, a moving thing, and then you end up watching some absolute nonsense, don't you? And going down some kind of rabbit hole, and you've watched like 10 fight videos.
Oh,
you're
Lord,
like, no,
yeah.
no. Now my whole timeline's full of people getting beat up just because I watched one fight video. So yeah, that's worth doing to turn off the autoplay.
Yeah, I know. It's weird how that works. I sometimes catch myself doom scrolling. I'm like, I gotta stop this. I gotta put it down for a minute.
It's so easy to do.
I know.
It's all designed, and the people who are designing these systems are absolute. They know.
And the posts are like, oh, this is shit. And, oh no, I shot another person in the U.S. And oh look, things are even shittier. And I'm just like, guys. It's I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't. The world.
Like I can't look away.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, the world's not in a great state. But if you had to believe like everything you see online, then you would think we're living in some kind of post-apoc sort of nightmare. And we're not. Go outside. People are actually okay mostly.
Yeah, it's funny. It makes me think of a friend of mine. He's been kind of wandering around the States. I actually got to meet him in person, which was really cool. Me and my dad did anyway, because my dad's like, he's not trying to like do anything weird, dude. So yeah, we both met him. But anyway, he said similar thing. He's like, you should touch grass, man. People are generally pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's it's very easy to hate people in an abstract way. You end up hating groups that you've never met. But on an individual basis, most people are okay. They're no better or worse than you yourself are. And this whole social media is designed to put people into groups, isn't it? And then you end up hating a whole load of people you never even met. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird how that works. I'm just
it is what it is, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Just try and live your life if you can.
But I've also met some like really cool people. I've met like you and Steve Stark, and I've met a bunch.
Yeah, of people are there, and you'll find them if you're persistent, or not even persistent, but if you hang around long enough, and you end up kissing a lot of frogs to find a princess. But and it's definitely like that in the writing community. You'll chat to people, you might think some people are all right, next minute they're like sending you stuff, and
I can't tell you how many I've gotten so many people who followed me and going like, oh, are you a writer? Would you like your stuff to be illustrated? And I'm like, I got so sick of it. No. I just started blocking people outright if they start soliciting their stuff.
Honestly, artists, graphic designers, you are the worst on Twitter. You are the worst. Every time I ever dare to follow one of you, you're in my fucking DMs after about 2 minutes. Stop it now.
Yeah, no, I literally put out a post being like, hey, look, I love that you follow me, but if you follow me and like 2 minutes later try to like sell something to me, you
Yeah.
will be blocked. And
You will be blocked. I won't even open your DM. I'll delete it immediately and block you.
pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Zero tolerance for you. Art people, stop doing it. You know, there are some wonderful artists out there who don't do that, but you're giving those people a bad name. My goodness.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm pretty good at like, I mean, you know, I'm not perfect, of course. You know, there's some scams I've kind of gotten wrapped up in, but I can mostly spot scams, you know, for the most part.
Well, and now the location button has helped so much, and you know, you just got to do a quick check. Oh, you're from, you're from somewhere in Africa. The likelihood that you are a pretty 25-year-old blonde girl with an American name.
Bro, there's also so many sex workers that follow, or sex workers, I should say. Sorry, they're probably not. And I'm like, I just have to block them. I'm like, first of all, why are you following me?
Yeah. And a lot of trouble comes as well, doesn't it, from indiscriminately following back whoever follows you. A lot of the people I see complaining daily about getting scam DMs. I'm like, yeah, but you know, why don't you actually check who the person following you is before you follow back and get your instant weird DM? You know, mind you, this is probably why I'm still on like 500 followers for the last like 6 months. I have zero tolerance. I don't follow back very easily. You know, most people are blagging, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I have a buddy. He's in Scotland. His name's David, and I put it on Instagram. I'm like, okay, guys, if you just follow me and then immediately try to sell me on something, you are gonna get blocked. And then he commented. He's like, oh, hey, Britton, can I interest you on this deal for this house I have? I'm like, fuck you,
dude,
man.
No way. Yeah.
He's just screwing with me. I don't think it's real. But I was like, yeah, come on.
Probably not. Yeah, no one in Scotland owns a house. Joke. But yeah, I like to. One thing that's kind of fun when I used to work offshore, as I've said, is you'd work with a lot of groups. A lot of people from different parts of the UK because it's kind of quite small.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear my mom there.
No, totally didn't hear anything.
Oh man, I heard like massive banging. I'm like, what is going on? Is someone at the door?
Yeah.
Someone get murdered? Hope not.
Yeah, hopefully not, huh? Yeah, so one thing that I really enjoyed working offshore is you had lots of different people from different parts of the UK, you know, so you'd be working in a small team and you'd have a couple of people from Scotland, a couple of Welsh guys, people from the northeast of England, people from Northern Ireland, people from down south in Ireland. And it was really cool to have all these different accents, all these different jokes, different filthy jokes and like euphemisms and forms of expression, and I got a memory for it as well. So, you know, I remember like weird or wonderful sayings, and I get to inject that into my own work. And I think that's where it's important as a writer. You see people. I'm just talking a lot now. I'm aware of it. You see people and they're like, oh, if I quit, I would love to quit work and write full time. And I'm like, I totally would not like that. You know, if you want to write. If you want to be an effective writer, you have to be around people. You have to meet people if you can. And yeah, I don't think sitting in a room on your own all your life is going to turn you into a good writer, I would say.
Yeah, no, it's I just read a lot, and that's kind of where I'm at. So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you have a lot of experiences to pull from.
I do, you know. Yeah, just and you know, especially when I was younger, I wasn't the wisest of people, so I found myself in some, you know, kind of dangerous situations every now and then.
Yeah, you know, my same friend has been walking around he went around the States. He went to Mexico for a while, and yeah, he got robbed. Yeah, he was telling me. I was like, damn, dude, gotta be careful over there in Mexico. And he's like,
yeah,
he survived. You know, like he's fine. He got back to Canada without too much hassle. But yeah, no, it was scary. I was like, damn, dude, I hope you're all right. And he's like, I'm good.
It
He stole
is.
my backpack and all my other shit.
Yes, yeah, like I was saying, it's easy to get in trouble when you're far away from home. And if there's any ethos I've taken that I've put into my writing, is that life is pretty fragile. You know, you are only a couple of false moves from really being in trouble, even in the comfort of your own home, your home city. You only got to take a couple of wrong turns, and you can really screw your life up. Huh?
Yeah,
So
that's why I'm kind of in that like I'm like a very like law-abiding citizen. You know, trying not.
there's
Trying.
no need. Not there's, you know, most of the time, you don't need. You know, if you
Yeah, I'm
most of
like
the time you can follow the rules to good effect. You know, most of the rules that society has set up are quite sensible, aren't they?
yeah, I'm sometimes like
Um,
that Jack Kerouac. Some of the friend groups I've been in, I'm just this normal guy in this group of lunatics running around. You know,
Jack
doing
Kerouac.
drugs and drinking and getting into
I got
crazy shit.
Yeah, he's got some pretty good stuff, Kerouac as well, isn't he? I mean, I think
I've
most
I've kind
people.
of moved on from Kerouac. I kind of got bored with the beats because it's like, okay, this is basically just thinly veiled autobiography. Like, come on. But
Yeah, yeah,
at least like Burroughs, like he's like, I'm gonna do this like weird sci-fi shit, and everyone's like, what the fuck is that? But
yeah.
I'm
He really went out there.
gonna
Um,
do I'm gonna do Naked Lunch, whatever the hell that is. I'm just like, oh, okay.
Kerouac's poetry is kind of fun, you know. If you get away, I mean, I think most people have read
I
On the
wanted to
Road,
go to
but
Big Sur as well because I really love the Big Sur book that Jack Kerouac did.
I haven't read that one. I only read two. I read On the Road and the Dharma Bums, but then I got a collection of his poetry, and that's kind of wild. That's kind of fun. You see more of his personality coming through. Then, as you say, you know, these other ones they end up so just sort of very thinly veiled autobiographies. So yeah, the poetry's good. It's worth a read.
Yeah, I mean, going back to Burroughs though, like Burroughs is definitely one I'd love to explore more. I'm just kind of like, you know, he did like Naked Lunch. I'm like, I don't know about Naked Lunch. That seems a little too freaky for me.
Yeah, I would say so. You know, I enjoyed. I mean, Junkie
I kind of want to.
Queer is very good.
Like
I'm
I kind of want to read his like science fiction stuff because I'm curious to see what he does there. But again, I don't know. I heard it's pretty weird and out there.
It is pretty weird. You might want to try. He's got like a kind of loose collection of short stories called Exterminator, and that is got some really good sort of speculative fiction stuff in there. It's probably a bit more accessible than picking up one of his novels. So I really recommend that Exterminator. It's very cool.
Yeah, and there's like weird stuff. Like he was into to the occult and like yeah, he was an interesting guy.
Definitely, yeah. You know, and he sort of was kind of quite smart in a literary sense as well. He used like some certain techniques like cutting up the text or folding the text. So yeah, he's worth a read. And you rightly said that you're a bit wary of Naked Lunch. It's one of those things to have on
Like
your shelf.
I'm kind of like oddly curious of it, but also I'm like I have no freaking clue if what I'm gonna make of this, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, read it at some point in your life. Just don't maybe try to take regular breaks from it because it will give you the ick in place. There's one amazing character in there though called Dr. Benway. He's like this psychotic surgeon doctor who with very questionable morals.
Oh boy.
Yeah, yeah, he's quite funny.
Yeah, I mean it's weird because Burroughs is kind of like this sort of like outlaw writer who's people seem to not be able to make like heads or tails of him. There's a group of people who love him, and then there's like other like critics and people who just think he's out of his frickin' mind on heroin, which he probably
Well,
was on a good
well,
amount of it.
yeah, and now we're in this current era of canceling people or of I mean, he's so cancelable. You know, I mean, a borderline pederast who killed his wife and had a drug habit. Um, he also came from money. You know, he came from
Yeah,
money.
no, he
You
came
know?
from a pretty prominent family, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, there's an uncle. I think it was his uncle was like the inventor of the adding machine, the Burroughs adding machine. You know, it was a big wealthy industrialist family.
Hmm.
So he ended up being the black sheep of the family. Um, and yeah, and he's probably a horrible guy in many ways, but he writes great.
Yeah, it's
So that's
interesting. I've seen interviews with him, and he just does not sound like how I imagined him. He has like this very like kind of nasally voice. He's like, "Hi, I'm Bill Burroughs." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't."
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, you get to.
He just kind of
I
looks like a
think
grandpa, you know.
I think you can find on YouTube he actually narrates Junkie himself, and yeah, he's got like some really distinctive voice.
Yeah, I remember liking Junkie. It's very stark.
Yeah, yeah, very matter of fact. He's not excessive in how he expresses himself, but
Also, how it's probably also the best It's also probably the best example I've seen of what it's like to like shoot up,
yeah, and he
or at
he
least the
doesn't.
best written scenes of people shooting up heroin.
Yeah, and he doesn't glamorize it. I mean, there's scenes that he includes a scene where he's like desperately searching down the back of his sofa for something. I can't remember what it was, cigarette paper or drugs or something, and ends up getting like a furniture nail up under his finger when he's trying to digging around the back of the sofa, and it's just like he sort of shows the sort of the misery and the total lack of glamour there is in this lifestyle, which is pretty cool.
It's also
I can
just
appreciate
fascinating
that.
how much he's influenced. Like, there's so many like he kind of influenced like a whole generation of like oddballs. Um,
Definitely,
like
and he was like the real sort of the brain power in the Beats movement as well.
mm-hmm.
He was a bit older than the others. He was a bit older than Ginsberg and Kerouac and Cassidy and stuff. But he had a big influence on them apparently.
Well, I find Burroughs interesting because he seemed like he wasn't afraid to challenge himself. It wasn't like the other beats who were like these kind of like, oh, we're smoking weed and banging women. Look how radical we are. And then there's Ginsberg over there who's like, yo, pedophiles. We should have legal rights, and you're like, whoa, 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 hold on
Whoa,
a
whoa,
sec,
whoa, whoa!
whoa, hold on a second, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
think Burroughs didn't kind of advocate for his own proclivities, at least.
yeah, Burroughs is like, I'm just over here doing my cutting up
Yeah,
newspapers and getting absolutely wasted out of my mind and shooting my wife in the face.
yeah. That was a bad deal, wasn't it? Poor woman. Um,
Yeah, no, Ginsberg was also kind of an odd guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he
They
and
all
he and
were.
Burroughs, like, yeah, they all were. He and Burroughs like corresponded by letter sometimes as well. I think when Burroughs got lonely and was hoping for somebody to connect with
Yeah,
or
but I
something like.
find Burroughs kind of interesting because of kind of his experimentation, but also, um, he wasn't afraid to like do other things and not just doing the whole like, oh, this is basically just my life, but I'm fictionalizing it. Though he did
Yeah, and
do
he
that, like with Junkie is a good example of that.
he went on a whole like mission to down into the sort of Amazon basin, didn't he? He was looking for yahe, like DMT, ayahuasca. So he went on a whole mission through the jungle. That shows up in Queer, the second book that he did, which is kind of quite autobiographical too.
Yeah, I've thought about checking out Queer because I saw a movie version of it came out, and I was like, oh, that's
It's a
interesting.
good book. It's a good book. I mean, it's kind of grim reading because he's like coming off the junk and he's like drinking a lot, and he makes these really pathetic overtures towards this young man who he's attracted to, and it's kind of the miserable existence of a slightly creepy old drunk who's trying to get a young man into bed. Um, but there's the kind of a raw honesty. And it's kind of heartbreaking, and it's really beautifully written as well. So I do recommend that. It's well worth the read. I don't
I'll
know
have
what
to
the other
find
things
that.
like. Yeah,
Or actually, I think they sell it at my local bookshop. That's like the one of his like that and like Junkie and like Naked Lunch. They'll be like, yeah, just read those.
yeah, yeah. Always available.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, I would like to read more of Burroughs at some point, but I feel like I have to be in like the mood for it.
Yeah, it's not light reading. Most of it's not light reading. It's not something you go and have. It's not a ripping yarn that you'll keep turning the pages until the end. But it's good. It's well worth checking out.
Yeah, but it's again, I kind of like that weird outlaw type of literature.
Yeah, and there's sort of has real noirish elements to the way he writes as well. He has detectives and stuff.
It's probably why I
Detectives and
like noir as well.
yeah,
Because it's often about criminals and reprobates and just general no-gooders.
yeah, and there's a certain that sort of satisfies something in us, doesn't it? What
Yeah,
reading about the type of people that we are not. Those different sort of subcultures that we don't get to be a part of. So yeah,
yeah. I always think it's like I think people on some level crave some kind of excitement, and they'll get it some way. Some people actually go out and do drugs and whatnot, and then there's some people who read books and do other things.
yeah. What was it Tom Waits said? Reality is for people who can't handle drugs. Um,
Yeah, it's and I also just like writers who are just weird. So
yeah, and I'm sure a lot of them are. I don't know. I don't know if I'm weird. I can't. You can't judge your own weirdness. It's only for other people to judge. But you'll be amazed that I think certainly in the horror genre that it's almost like the writers get the weird out onto the page and are fairly well balanced.
yeah, it's like I'm sure you know who Clive Barker is, but Clive
Yes.
Barker's kind of I've not read any. He's another one I've wanted to try for a long time. Or well, actually, no, I have read him. I've read the Hellbound Heart because I remember watching Hellraiser. Or is it Hellraiser? I think it's Hellraiser. And
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? And then it was like, oh, there's a book, and I read the book, and I was like, okay, but still, damn, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Steve. I think Steve Stark and some of the other writers I associate with, they're quite into Clive Barker. I haven't read any Clive Barker, and and
Oh
and,
yeah.
and and like I said earlier, I'm not really like a major horror guy. It's not like I build a
I guess I should
persona
ask,
out
like,
of
what
it.
type of literature do you like? I guess you sort of answered. You like William Burroughs. Like, what are some other things you like to read?
Tom Sharp. I grew up reading a lot of Tom Sharp. His work hasn't aged really well, but he would write satires. He wrote satires of life under apartheid in South Africa. He had weird like stories told in places like wealthy boarding schools like Eton. So he would have a cast of like wildly unlikable characters getting into all kinds of escapades, sometimes sexual. So yeah, I like the satire of that. I liked her, but I do, I've read a fair bit of King, quite enjoy it. Um, and then for the rest of it, I'll just pick and choose. These days, nearly all indie that I read um, with my associates. I also listen to a lot of non-fiction. That's something I'll do with audiobooks.
Yeah, it's something actually I was
Um,
talking about with Steve Stark when I had him on my show. It's yeah, there's not really much room for that kind of like William Burroughs type of like outlaw type of writer now.
no, they're outmoded, as
Yeah,
it were.
they'd like if a William Burroughs was trying to do what he was doing today, he'd get like chased out of the he'd be chased out of the country.
Yeah, yeah, he wouldn't get anywhere, And I think to some degree, a lot of the older books that we rave about are very very good. But I think the publishing was a lower bar in the past. I think if you had a little bit of money about you and you could string a sentence together, then you had a realistic chance of getting published if you had a couple of contacts.
Mm.
Whereas now, you can even be very good, and being very good has very little to do with your success. I think there are other things at play. But going back to it, for I don't read a lot of fiction. I don't read a lot of horror,
Mm.
mainly because I don't want to get so soaked in the genre that I write that I'm writing the same thing as everyone else, or unconsciously like going down that same route and using the same tropes. So I try to avoid too much horror, apart from my friends who write. And yeah, I listen to a lot of non-fiction, history, psychology, um, those in particular, like Jungian psychology is quite interesting.
Yeah, I've heard he's quite fascinated with like archetypes and stuff.
Yeah, you know,
And
and people get into,
he was kind of weird.
oh yeah, weird, you know. I mean, he and Freud are like kind of weird mummies boys, you know. They're both a
Yeah,
bit
it seems kind of ironic that like Freud is like this big like psychology guy, and he's from what I've read about him, he sounded like a major head case himself.
yeah, you know, it's almost you need that. But some of the writers and thinkers who sort of picked up the baton from Freud and Jung are kind of quite interesting. There's also a social scientist I really like, and he's a Canadian fellow, he's long since passed, called Irving Goffman. His books on things like the way people behave in everyday interactions, their body language, how people are treated in asylums. You know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the
Yeah,
book and movie. Yeah,
yeah.
that was inspired by one of Goffman's books, Asylums. Kesey wrote that. I read that book, and that inspired him, along with his own work in mental hospitals, to write that book. So there's a lot of really interesting non-fiction that you can use to inform your fiction.
Yeah, I've been bad at keeping up with nonfiction in recent years. I mean, what was the last nonfiction book I read? Um, I can't remember. I'm actually hoping to read Astounding this year, which is about science fiction, which going back to just oddballs. A lot of the golden age science fiction writers were quite odd, to say the least. We'll just say.
Yeah, you know, and again, you know
Whether
that.
it be Heinlein and his interest in like nudism and polyamory, or L. Ron Hubbard, which the less said about that, the better.
Oh man, I was years ago. I'd just come out of university and I had some debts to pay off, so I was working a night job, a night shift in a call center, and I I befriended this guy there. He ended up like taking me to the Scientology meeting, and they had this like 3 hour long video presentation, and it was like all these really ridiculous statistics, like if all of the books that had been made by L. Ron Hubbard were stacked together, that they would go around the Earth 5 times. You're like, dude, what kind of bullshit statistic is that? It's not interesting, you know. And yeah, it's like
Well,
it was
if
weird.
it is to be believed, he is the most prolific writer in the English language. I think he won the
Oh,
Guinness Award for that.
that's great to know, isn't it? It's really heartening that some charlatan can claim that top
Interest.
spot.
I will say, interesting guy. Not a good guy, but a very interesting guy.
Yeah, yeah,
If
fair
you ever
enough.
read the book Going Clear by Lawrence Wright, I still think that's probably the best book I've read about Scientology.
I haven't. I don't know it.
Yeah, it's a great book, but it's yeah, I read that because I saw the documentary and I was like, oh, that's a awesome documentary, and then I read the book. I'm like, this is a great book. So kind of all over the place, and it talks about like he would like he hung out with this guy called Jack Parsons, who was this rocket scientist, basically created the language for rocket science. He was also this massive, like, weird dude. Like, he was into, like, science fiction, like science fiction isn't weird. Though it does attract a lot of weirdos. But,
Uh-huh.
like, big science fiction fan. He was an occultist. He would have these weird, like, orgies, spells, stuff, that type of thing. And, yeah, really just a wild story.
That's crazy, isn't it? And again,
California, man.
Hey, have you ever read any? Have you ever heard of a guy called David Zindel? He wrote like a science fiction trilogy. There was
Not.
the Broken God and Neverness. I remember reading one of his books, maybe two, when I was much younger, and he had this really cool concept. It's like, so it's set in the future. There are pilots, space pilots,
Mm-hmm.
but they travel through space by being like really good mathematicians, and they've got to calculate their way through space by doing all these like formulas and stuff. And I just thought that's a really cool idea. Like the most successful or the best pilots are like the ones with the best math. And it's kind of quite a cool concept, huh? That you have to plot yourself.
That's interesting.
You have to plot yourself by using like really advanced calculus or whatever. I just
good
thought
thing
that was
I'm not a
quite cool
pilot because
idea.
I am awful at math. So
I am shit as well. I was just like I was sleeping when they started introducing letters, and then suddenly one day there are A's and B's and X's and Y's, and I'm like, what?
Yep.
what did I miss? And I never recovered from it. I can do the basic stuff, I can calculate this and that, but when we get into those quadratic equations and stuff, I am lost, brother.
Yeah, no, I sometimes feel like math was trolling me because I would have the teacher literally show me how to do a math problem, and then
And
like
you're lost by step two.
I would
Yeah,
still get the answer wrong. I'm just like, this is ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. It never worked for me.
Yeah, no,
Never worked
my
for me.
brain is just not wired that way.
Same. You're not alone.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm attracted to like genres like science fiction or fantasy because it's like again it just attracts just odd people or even
Yeah,
comics for that matter. I mean, noir maybe a little bit. I mean, I think noir does. There are some oddballs in noir. I mean, James Ellroy pops to mind.
yeah. He's like a gold standard of writers for that genre still, isn't he? People are really big on him.
Yeah, no, he's great, but yeah, I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's just weird how that works. It's like it's funny. I remember I would go to college, the like super odd people would just go to me, and I'm just like, why? I remember telling my mom one day, I'm like, why the hell do these weird people keep like getting attracted to me? Like they're always talking to me about stuff, and it's like, well,
It's like that though. I mean, we had like a comic sketch that that one of an old British comedian would say that whenever he got on the bus, there's always a lunatic would sit next to him. But but it happens, and my wife will laugh at me, and she'll like, "God, you talk to the oddest people." I'm like, I don't talk to them; they talk to me. They just come up, and I think you probably have some. You're approachable, okay, or
I
you
guess so.
don't give, yeah, or tolerant or non-threatening. All good stuff, and I get it a lot. I end up talking to the oddest people, and most of the time they're pretty harmless. There's It's very easy for us to say, "Oh God, look at that weirdo across the street." Um, a lot of them are all right, they don't know how to present the same way that most people do. They missed out. You and I missed out on a couple of math lessons. They missed out on a couple of lessons where you present yourself as normal in the public eye. Probably.
Yeah, like, I'm not saying my social skills are amazing, but I don't know. They make me look like I'm an absolute genius.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was reading a thing, so not to go too deep into it, because time's getting on. But I was doing this National Geographic lesson with some of my students about autism,
Hmm.
and one thing they've noticed about autism is that when the kids are young, they don't focus on their parents' faces. They get fixated on things like screens, books, or whatever.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And because they're not watching their parents, then they don't learn all of those tiny little facial expressions
Mm. Mm.
that display whether someone's like bored or angry or losing their patience or interested. And that, over the course of years of growing up, they miss like tens and hundreds of thousands of little interactions with their parents and how their parents' facial expressions. So then, when you're talking to someone later on who maybe is on the spectrum,
Mm.
they don't know if they think you're angry when you're excited or stuff like that. And that I think is a problem with our younger ones now who even aren't on the spectrum. They got all this time on screens instead of being out meeting people. Um, then yeah, I don't know where that started. It's kind of come to an end, but that's interesting to me, that facial recognition thing, and being able to pick up on social cues just by watching people.
Yeah, I actually have Asperger's. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I made a video on my channel about it a long time ago, so I won't rehash all that here. But yeah, it's an interesting experience.
Does this ring true with you at all? Then the sort of being I don't know enough about Asperger's to really say very much, but does that ring true that it's a lack of interaction with people can
I can
influence?
only speak from my own experience. I don't. A lot of it is like hyperfixation. Like we're really like we get like hyperfixated on stuff.
Okay.
So, like sometimes you'll one of the things that's like a tell for autistic people is like they'll stare at you and you're like, well, what the fuck are you looking at me like that for? It's, it's nothing. We just fixate. I don't know why I do that. That's just part of it.
Do you get like fixated on something for a while and then you like drop it and it's done and
yeah, like I'll read like a bunch of books in a certain thing and then I'll get like bored and then, go in another direction. It's weird. I don't,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fairly human thing anyway. I mean,
this is true. Yeah, that's true.
I was terrible as a younger person for like hobbies. I always wanted to, I'd start a new hobby and be enthusiastic for like a month. I'd be like, fuck this, it actually requires hard work and dedication. Something else, bring me something else. Yeah.
So true.
Abandoned musical instruments floating around my bedroom, dearie me. But yeah, all right.
Yeah, or like, I don't know. I played drums for a while, and then I couldn't find anyone to play with, so I kind of just lost interest. My parents gave it to a friend of theirs, so, there you go.
Yeah, my dad did that to me once. We built one of those radio control cars, I mean, you just buy them pre-made now, but it used to be that you'd build it yourself, and we built this thing. And then I went for like a month of not using it, and he was offended, so he gave it to his friend's son. I was like, what? Yeah, use it or lose it. All right, Dad. Cheers, mate. Thanks.
It sounds like your family's had a adventurous life as well. If your dad was married to someone from Kuwait.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, my dad. My parents like separated when I was young, and then my dad was in oil and gas. He used to be a saturation diver in the North Sea, and
then, well, okay.
Then he ended up working. He went from like. So
you have a ton of material, by the way, to work with.
I do, yeah. He went from military to sort of commercial diving and then into oil and gas. He's in Texas now.
He's in Texas.
He's in Texas now. We don't really get along or see eye to eye. I wouldn't say we don't get along. We don't communicate at all. But yeah, so he's moved around. Yeah, he's in Texas, married to some lady my age from Kyrgyzstan.
Oh God!
Don't ask, brother. It's so you're right. It's a very colourful,
Hopefully, your mom hasn't had it as much of a colourful.
No, mum stayed in her hometown, my home city. I'm from Plymouth, Plymouth, southwest England. So yeah, mum's back there. But yeah, dad was like one of like 9 kids, and they
oh
were
my God.
All a bit wild. So I got uncles in different places of the world, and
man,
stuff like that. But yeah, and I think it all stems from my Belarusian grandfather. He said he always had like a wanderer's spirit, So I was never going to stay put. I was always going to be moving around. Just a bit of a wanderer, I suppose.
You have a wanderlust, as they call it.
Yeah. Although, I think it was Kerouac who said in Dharma Bums, people have this romanticized idea of travel. Most of the time when you're traveling, you hate it. You're pissed off, you're uncomfortable, you're worried about your next destination, you're running so many programs in your mind about what you need to be doing. Travel is something you enjoy in retrospect. And when you can reminisce, remember that time we were here, that was such a cool journey. It wasn't cool at the time at all. It was a fucking nightmare. So that idea that traveling is fun, not really, not for me. But in in retrospect, you have a lot to talk about and think about.
Yeah, I've some of my stories are just some of the interesting people I've met in my life.
Yeah, and the world is full of interesting, but that's where it's at. That's the people, and it's all very well hating people in the abstract, but if you haven't got people, you haven't got a life, really. I would say.
This is true. You meet a lot of I mean, I'm a guy who likes where I'm at, so there you
Yeah,
go.
and I think the internet's opened a lot of things up for us as well. I mean, that kind of not bugs me, but I think it's a misconception when they say, "Oh, it's only Twitter, it's not real life." Well, it's real life. That's real life people you're talking to. It's real life people who are reading your messages and who are
For the
responding
most
to you.
part, there are those people trying to sell you their art or sell you their
There,
art. It's
there
probably a
are,
scam.
but there are, but then in the material world outside, there's plenty of con artists on the street, aren't there?
That's true.
So,
It's true.
so yeah, and therefore, I don't want it to seem like, oh, I'm saying, oh, you've got to get out and travel and see the world to make anything of yourself. It's not now. You don't. Now you can chat to people all around the world, and if you're genuine, you will make connections. And I mean, I write about people in the UK, and but most of my day-to-day communication, I'm not going around meeting people. I'm chatting with people I know online from different parts of the
I
world.
mean, I've met some colorful people on this podcast. Like my last episode before this one were these guys who do this show where they talk about Shakespeare while smoking a shitload of weed. So
Okay,
it was
interesting.
it was a fun journey because like I don't I don't want to rehash. It was a fun episode though. I'll say that. I'll just say that for right now. It was a fun episode to record.
And it's amazing
We
what
went all
goes
over the
there.
place. Like I thought we were gonna talk
Yeah,
about like books, and then it's like, oh, we started talking about like drugs and just weird shit that's happened in our lives. It's good fun.
it is the joy of life, and that you don't know where things are going. Um, this kind of nice format you've got here. It's not like you send a pre-questionnaire or anything. We just go for it. I like that.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
it's
very
always
good.
funny. There's some people who's like, oh, are there questions you ask? And I'm like, not really. I just like to sit and
Yeah,
talk.
yeah, and that's
I'll
exactly.
ask. I will ask about stuff if you've like written a book or
Yeah.
anything. I'll ask about that.
But that's the thing I enjoy. I'm not very good at preparing because whenever I do prepare, I screw it up anyway. So I'm better off just like going in blind and just see what happens.
So, are there going to be any books about deep sea divers who discover eldritch abominations in the ocean anytime soon?
I'm thinking that
Unless you've already written that story, because I would like to
no,
read that.
but no, there's definitely something here. I'll tell you a quick anecdote about that. So my dad was, like I said, he was working offshore. He was in the oil and gas industry, and he would have like 3 or 4 months off between jobs. And we lived down in the southwest, and he had a boat, and he used to take me and my cousin out water skiing on his boat. And there was this one part in the ocean, and there was a breakwater there, and there was like this old fortification, and it was like an alley that he would take us skiing through. And he made up this story. I mean, we were only like 6 or 7 at the time. Made up the story that there were like man-eating fish, man-eating conger eels in that part. Okay. And then what the bastard would do is he'd take you skiing through there, and as he went through, he'd start slowing the boat down, and you'd start sinking down in the water, and he'd leave you floating there, absolutely shitting your pants. Yeah, so
That's
that's my
terrible.
dad.
I'm sorry, I don't
That's
mean to laugh.
terrible.
That's
Yeah,
awful.
I know. I mean, it is funny. It is funny now, but at the time, it was just like horrifying. So, in answer to your question, I could probably do something quite horrific based on something marine life. Yeah, so it's not out of the question, that's for sure. And Hartmouth, my fictional town, is on the sea. It has a beach and a harbour and stuff. Anyway, so
It's one of those
yeah, I could
towns
definitely do.
like Salem's Lot or
Yeah,
what's the fucking place in the H.P. Lovecraft stories? I can't think of it at the moment. Arkham.
I don't. Okay, But yeah,
Where
very
it's just
much.
like,
And
oh, here's just a town where just weird shit happens.
yeah, this is what happened in mine. So my town, they have an eclipse, a blood moon, a lunar eclipse, and ever since that happens, the whole town goes like slightly batshit crazy. So so that's what's happening, and I'm
Just
just
goes
writing my
full, just goes
fourth.
full purge.
Yeah, I'm writing my fourth book now, based in this town, and this is based on the outskirts, and this is going to be like kind of a backwoods slasher. Group of friends go magic mushroom picking and end up witnessing something they shouldn't witness, and then getting chased by bloodthirsty hillbillies
Oh,
until everyone
so like a
dies.
folk horror. You see,
Yeah, yeah, I'm thinking of going for that. I
they're
usually take
British
it.
hillbillies.
Yeah, well, everywhere has country bumpkins, and yeah,
Then again, I've seen movies like, you know, uh, Hot Fuzz, where it's like small town, there's a weird thing going on,
yeah,
or
yeah.
I've heard
So
some English accents that are incomprehensible, or at least they sound incomprehensible.
definitely, especially to northeast has some weird accents. The sort of Hartlepool and Newcastle. Some of those accents are quite thick, quite hard to understand.
Yeah, I once saw an interview of an Irish guy, and he was just like speaking words, and his accent was so thick. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, difficult, really difficult to follow. Huh? I There's a place in the northeast of England called Hartlepool. I don't know if you've heard of it. And the people from Hartlepool have a nickname, and they're called monkey hangers.
Oh
And
no.
that this comes from the fact that I think, and my details are hazy, but during the Napoleonic Wars, a ship was washed up, and they found a monkey. Okay, it was a ship's monkey, but it was wearing a uniform, and they thought that it was a French spy. The people of this town, and they tried and hanged the monkey. Okay, thinking it was French, thinking it was a Frenchman. And so that's why they got the nickname now of the being monkey hangers. That's what you call
Oh,
people from
that's
Hartlepool. That's great, isn't it?
oh,
That's
that's
brilliant.
great.
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh, geez, now I'm thinking back to last episode because I was like, yeah, I don't like. I'm not like a drug person, but if I ever wanted to try drugs, I would probably try like a psychedelic type of something.
yeah, there was a lot of acid. People used to take acid tabs a lot when I was growing up. So that
Yeah,
was my
it's like I always hear these stories about people having like these like profound like spiritual experiences on like mescaline. I'm like, oh, I kind of want to get in on that
yeah.
someday.
Although it's one of those things people exaggerate. I mean, one thing that with those psychedelics, is you've got just as much chance of like spending 3 hours like staring at the back of your hand, wondering why your skin looks like that, than you are to have any profound experience.
That's true. Yeah.
You're mildly paranoid about the bend of your ankle for like 3 hours or something like that.
Yeah,
So yeah.
the people last episode were like, "Here's what you do: just like go to your house, don't be around anyone who's like an asshole. Just take microdoses." I'm like, all right, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, it does. It definitely pays not to have any like heavy baggage or at the time. That can definitely influence your frame of mind. Could screw things up for you a bit. That's for sure.
Yeah, but it's just it's a weird thing.
Yep. Yeah, it is. But yeah, I won't advocate here, but it's not the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, no,
Um,
and there's also the thing like there's always that kind of nervousness of like turning into like a Sid Barrett where you just take so much you just go fucking crazy and become like a hermit
oh, it happens. We had
and
a
live out in the
mate.
woods, with
Yeah,
painting.
a kid I grew up with, who grew up in the same street as me. He went and he spent a few years in Asia, I think Thailand, and ended up taking too many drugs, and he was never the same when he came home. Ended up beating up his mother and all sorts. He's
Oh,
now, yeah, yeah. So it is possible. Some people can have like I don't know, some kind of psychological rift. Maybe it was there all along, and the drugs just bring it out. Who knows?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. Yeah, but it's an experience, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and everything is, just try not to do the same thing all your
It's
life.
that's the thing though. Like I was talking about this with another person on my show a few weeks ago, where I was talking about like, yeah, like I mean I know pubbing's a thing in the UK. I was actually talking about this with Steve even, and I was like,
Yeah,
like drinking isn't so much a thing anymore. Like at least maybe it's just the people I hung out with when I was in school, or maybe it's just I'm just not too hip to underage. I didn't underage drink. I was a rule follower to the nth degree, but um, I yeah, no, but like drinking's not like a thing anymore. Like at least from
yeah, I
what I've
guess not.
noticed.
Well, I got a son in his 20s, and he don't drink much. I did and do. Well, I don't now. I live in a country where where booze is available, but I'm getting older. It's not really my thing anymore. But certainly in the days when I worked offshore, then you drink a skinful every night. Um, and most of my characters in my books smoke and drink. I set them back in the early 2000s when you could still smoke in a bar and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
Before,
kind of like how smoking went out of style. I don't know. I mean, there's people who still like. I know, like in Europe, it's a bit different. Like drinking's kind of like just like the thing you do, aside from like
yeah,
I don't know what else you guys do over there in Europe. I'm sure there's other things, but
yeah, there are the things that
it's not like
a
the
lot of.
U.S. where you could just like get a gun and just go out in the desert and like shoot stuff.
Yeah, it's weird you say that. Actually, I've noticed there's like kind of quite a strong sentiment against smokers, and I hear it a lot from some of my American friends. Oh, a filthy habit and stuff like that. I grew up around smoking, so I don't see it that way. I mean, I'm well aware of the dangers, and yeah, it doesn't smell so good, especially if someone smokes in their own home, it impregnates everything, all their soft furnishings. But I don't really get this kind of hatred towards smoking and smokers. It is
Yeah,
what it is.
I kind of fell into that sway a few years ago because I saw some like anti-smoking commercials and they freaked me out. And my mom smoked, so I was just kind of like, oh no, I don't want that to happen to my mom. So I was trying to like well intentioned
Yeah,
I was, but some of them have just gotten super obnoxious over the years. I'm just like, good God, guys, like.
yeah, and this vaping's a weird thing as well, isn't it? People are into that big time, but we don't even know the health
Oh my God,
effects of
what
vaping yet.
when I was in school, people were like, "Oh, don't vape, you'll get like." I fucking hated it when I was in school, and they would do like the anti-vaping or like anti-bullying stuff because it's like people are still gonna do it.
Yeah.
It's like that South Park episode when they try to get them to stop smoking, and they're just so unimpressed by how lame it was. They go get cigarettes and start smoking.
Yeah, and there is something to that. I got two girls, two twin girls, and very often the more you kind of make a big deal of something, the more likely they are to do it. So better off just shutting up half the time, I think, with that sort of thing.
But yeah, like I mean, like I don't drink all that much. I drink in like special occasions. Though I'm actually hoping to have some people on my channel soon to talk about a book set in Ireland. So I got some Guinness for the occasion.
Oh,
Um,
nice. One of the guys that is in my sort of horror writing circle. He's from Northern Ireland too. He's not living there now. He's living on one of the Channel Islands off Britain, but off England. But yeah, he's from Northern Ireland too, and he likes to smoke and a drink. Although I think he's just quit smoking now, so he's
yeah, it's funny.
probably a
All the
bit
people in like
ornery.
Northern Ireland don't like living there. Like a writer I really like called Garth Ennis. He's from Northern Ireland originally, and he's in New York now. I'm like, I guess
Beautiful place.
I was about to say, I guess
Beautiful.
I guess North Ireland must be a shithole. Cause good lord, it can't be that bad.
I don't know. I mean, the one thing I've learned
I'm just
wherever you
offending
go,
everybody today. I'm so sorry to
yeah,
the
do
Northern
it, do
Irish,
it.
to
Yeah,
the
let's.
Northern Irish people watching this.
We haven't mentioned the Welsh yet.
I think my friends
Um,
actually live in Dublin. The ones I'm hoping to have on to talk about
oh,
this
down
subject.
down south a little bit. Yeah, I didn't. One of my dad's brothers, one of my uncles, was living in down in the south in Wexford County, and so I spent a summer in Southern Ireland, or the Republic of Ireland as it's now called. doing decking, garden decking, and made loads of money. That was brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to go to again. I've always wanted to go to the UK. You know, just go around and see it all.
Yes,
I'm just kind of afraid it won't be as cool as I imagine it to be because it's like you see
nothing's
it.
ever as nothing's ever as cool as you imagine it to be. The best thing to do is don't imagine it. Just go there. Um, that's what I found. The number of times I suffered in my late teens, imagining that tonight's party is going to be the best. It's going to be the best weekend ever. It was always shit. I was always disappointed. So
Yeah, I
I've
think it was.
stopped these days. I
I
don't do
think it
it.
was. I think it was my friend who's Irish, and I'm like, guys, you're always dropping the c word down there. He's like, oh yeah, it's just part of the lingo over
Yeah, it's
there.
just
It's not
quite
even
normal.
always.
And
It's not always. It's not even a. It's not even a. It's not even an
yeah,
insult always. So I'm like,
yeah, it's sort of thing you say to your best mate, you daft cunt. Um, but it's
I
like
don't
super
like the
harsh.
word. It's a bit too
Yeah,
filthy for me. But hey, if you know,
yeah, and it's
God bless
very
you.
it can be very harsh in the United States too.
I
But
think it
I
was.
think it's
I
just
didn't know.
so
I think it was actually Steve who said that too. I don't know.
yeah.
It was funny.
It's partly because we've used it so often in the UK that although it is a word for female genitals, you don't think about it. If I did a word association and someone said the C word, I would be like, oh, my brother. Um, Whereas maybe in the United States, if you did an association, people might still think of it as a sexual organ.
Mm.
It's not. Same way that the F word, FAG,
Oh yeah.
in the
I
yeah
mean cigarette
in
over there.
yeah means cigarette, and even the full word FAGGOT. That's a type of like meatball in England.
Oh no. Oh
Yeah.
no.
So there's even a brand. So you would have faggots, chips, and peas for dinner.
Oh
That's a meal.
no.
So even that word used as a slur,
Oh
because
man.
the actual word, the original word, the F word is like something to be burned, isn't it?
Mm.
It's just something you burn. So if you use that in America, you're saying to that about that gay person like you should be burned. Whereas in the United Kingdom, you're saying, oh, you're a big tasty meatball. So it just doesn't have the same pop, you know. So it's quite interesting the origins or the sort of the associations with certain words.
Mm. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
yeah, it's a weird thing
yeah.
how that works. No,
And of
yeah,
course,
it was Steve who was telling me like, "Oh yeah, they'll just drop that in normal conversation. It's not even always a bad thing." It's like, "Oh, well.
yeah, yeah. It's not really a bad thing. It's fairly soft. Um, yeah, one of our British comedians, Scottish comedian actually, says he's always surprised by how people hated the C word in America, but were quite happy to say motherfucker. And you know what I mean? It's
That's
like they're
true. Yeah, we
both
do like
bad.
the we do like that word, especially when
Yeah,
Samuel L. Jackson's saying it."
yeah. He does deliver it pretty well, doesn't he?
No, man. That's great. Yeah. Well, I've been going on for a while. Man, this flew by. I'm kind of surprised. It's getting a little late where I'm at, but
Yeah, it's the same for me. I've got food. I need food because I have like a class, an early class on a Saturday morning. I'm teaching to young Chinese boys who are in California, oddly enough. So
it's
I
okay.
catch them on. Yeah, I know it's weird, isn't it? Most of the people I teach are in China, but sometimes
It's only like 8. It's almost 9 over there. What?
yeah. So I get them after school. They come home and they school. So 7 o'clock my time, I do an hour and a half, and then I came on to this one. So which goes to say I'm really hungry now. I want my breakfast.
Anyway,
So.
I mean, I don't want to hold you hostage. This has been great, by the way. It's been a very pleasant chat.
Yeah, it did go. But I just looked at the time myself, and it's been a couple of hours. It's crazy, huh?
Yeah, but
Um,
before I let you go, I always do this. If you have any social media or anything like that, feel free to share.
the only social media I've got, and I don't even know what the own name of my own social media tag. So let's have a quick look. Um, at heart_horrors on X Twitter. That's where to get me.
Hmm.
At heart_horrors. Um, And that's it. Uh, Follow me if you'd like to, if you're interested in horror stories. I don't do politics and I don't do fighting with people online. Okay, I'm pretty easy to get on with, and that's about it. Just don't try and sell me anything. Um,
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for coming on here, and
thank
hopefully
you for
you
giving me, thank you for giving me your time. It's been fun.
hopefully you all enjoyed this. And well, until next time.
Yes, yes. Until next time. Thanks very much, man.